Settle in, friend. Let the lamp beside you grow soft and low, and let the world outside fade to the size of a single window. Tonight, we travel back together, not far, only 80-some years, to a Sunday morning in small-town America, the second Sunday of May, 1944. Mother's Day. The quiet one. The one no family who lived through it would ever quite forget. Picture, if you will, a town. Any town. It could be in Ohio, where the maples are just unfurling their new green hands. It could be in Georgia, where the dogwoods have already shed their white petals onto the lawns like spilled sugar. It could be a fishing village in Maine, or a wheat town on the long, flat shoulder of Kansas. Wherever you place it, the morning begins the same way. The sky is pale. The air smells faintly of cut grass and coffee and the iron tang of dew on a porch railing. A milk truck rattles down a street, its bottles chiming softly against one another like small, polite bells. It is not yet 7 o'clock. In the houses along Maple Street and Elm and Jefferson and Oak, all those gentle, unhurried American streets, the mothers are the first ones up. They always are. A woman in a faded blue housecoat stands at her kitchen sink, looking out at the back garden where the lilacs have just begun to bloom. She fills the kettle. She watches a robin tug at a worm. She does not turn on the radio yet. The morning is too quiet, and she would like to keep it that way, just a little longer. On the windowsill above the sink, propped against the cornflower curtain, there is a photograph. A young man in uniform, smiling the half-smile of someone trying to look brave for the camera. Below the photograph, a small folded card, its edges already softened from being read and reread. A V-mail letter. The thin blue paper that traveled across an ocean to reach her. She does not pick it up. She does not need to. She has it by heart. Down the street, in a white clapboard house with a porch swing, another mother is laying out her best Sunday dress on the bed. Navy, with small white buttons. Beside it, a corsage box from the florist on the corner. Inside the box, wrapped in waxy green paper, a single carnation. White. The white ones, you see, were for the mothers whose sons were not coming home this year. Some because the boys were away. Some because the boys were gone for good. And in the spring of 1944, almost every mother in America had reason to wear white. The pink carnations were for the lucky ones, the mothers whose own mothers were still living, the ones who would gather around a Sunday table at noon, 3 generations of women, and pretend, gently, just for the afternoon, that the world was the same as it had always been. Out on Main Street, the bakery window glows. The baker has been up since 4, sliding trays of dinner rolls into the oven, and a hand-lettered sign in his window reads, simply, "For Mother." Beside it, a small American flag and a smaller Blue Star service banner, the kind that hung in so many windows that spring, each star a sun. Some of those banners now had a single gold star sewn carefully over the blue by hands that had trembled doing the sewing. The whole country, in those days, could be read in fabric. The church bells begin at 7:30. First the Methodist on the hill, then the Lutheran by the creek, then the little Catholic church on 2nd Street, all of them calling out across the rooftops in overlapping rings, the way bells have called people home for 1,000 years. Inside the houses, mothers fasten their pearl earrings, smooth their hair, slip on their gloves. They tuck handkerchiefs into their handbags. They will need them today. And somewhere, on a kitchen counter, beside the percolator and the bowl of new strawberries, there is a fountain pen and a sheet of stationery, blank, waiting. Because today, of all days, the letters will go both ways. Sons riding home from England, from Italy, from ships in the Pacific, and mothers writing back, in the careful loops of their Palmer method handwriting, the words they have been saving all week. The town breathes in. The bells ring on. And the light on Main Street, that softened early morning May light, falls across the carnations in the florist's window like a gentle, knowing hand. This is how the day began. Now step inside, if you will, to the small florist shop on the corner, the one with the green and white striped awning, and the bell above the door that gives a soft, polite chime when a customer enters. The air here is a little cool, a little damp, the way a flower shop always is, with that clean green smell of cut stems standing in tin buckets of water. Behind the counter, the florist, a woman in a navy apron, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, is bunching carnations by the dozen, her fingers moving in the patient, practiced way of someone who has done this every May for as long as she can remember. She knows the tradition by heart. She learned it, as so many did, from a woman named Anna Jarvis, who, almost 40 years before, in the spring of 1908, held the very first Mother's Day service in a small Methodist church in Grafton, West Virginia. Anna had loved her own mother dearly, and when her mother passed, she vowed to give the country a single day to honor every mother in it. She chose the carnation because it had been her mother's favorite flower. The carnation, she said, whose petals do not fall easily, but cling to the heart of the bloom, the way a mother's love clings to her children. And she wrote, in a letter that traveled from town to town, that a white carnation would be worn for a mother who had passed on, and a colored carnation, pink or red, for a mother still living. By 1914, when President Wilson made Mother's Day a national observance, the tradition had already taken root in every corner of the country, in every florist's window from Boston to San Diego. And so here, in May of 1944, the woman in the navy apron is doing what florists across America are doing this morning. She is sorting the white from the red. The white blooms she places gently into a separate vase, their petals soft and pale as a winter cloud, and these she will set aside for the customers she already knows are coming. Mrs. Halloran, whose son Tommy was lost at Salerno. Mrs. Brennan, whose boy was on the Juneau. The Polish widow on Maple Street, who lost her oldest in North Africa, and now wakes each morning to a house that is far too quiet. The white carnations are for them. They will pin them to their Sunday coats and walk to church with their heads held high, and the whole town will know, without a word being said, what the white bloom means. The red carnations she ties into looser bouquets, generous and bright, for the mothers whose sons are still riding home. These are the lucky ones, the women who that very afternoon will sit at their kitchen tables with a thin envelope and a familiar, beloved handwriting, and read about the weather in England, or the food in Italy, or some small joke about Sergeant so-and-so. The red carnations are for hope, for the boys who are still out there, somewhere across the ocean, but who are still, blessedly, alive. Out on the sidewalk, the Five and Dime store has opened its doors. You know the kind. A long, narrow shop with a wooden floor that creaks gently underfoot, and shelves stacked with everything a mother might need or want. Ribbons and thimbles and tin cookie cutters, postcards and writing paper, and small bottles of toilet water. A bell jingles. A girl of perhaps 12 comes in, clutching a few coins in her gloved hand. She has come for a card for her mother, and she stands a long while at the rack, reading each one carefully, her brow furrowed in serious thought. The clerk, an older man in a green visor, watches her kindly and pretends not to. At last she chooses one, a card with a pink rose on the front, and inside a poem about a mother's quiet, steady love. She pays in dimes and nickels, and the clerk slides the card into a paper bag, and she steps back out onto the sidewalk, into that soft May light, and walks home along the row of pinned carnations and bunting draped windows, holding her small, important purchase close to her heart. And while she walks home in that soft American afternoon, 3,000 miles to the east, the day is already fading into a long blue English evening. Picture, if you will, a wide green meadow, somewhere in the south of England, in a quiet corner of the countryside not far from the sea. The hedgerows are heavy with new leaves, and the hawthorn is just beginning to flower, white as old lace along the lanes. The fields are full of cows that pay no attention to the soldiers, and the soldiers in turn are growing rather fond of the cows. After the dust and clatter of camp all week, there is something deeply settling about a brown cow chewing slowly under a soft gray sky. The training camp sits at the edge of one of these meadows. Long rows of Quonset huts, curved like loaves of bread, stand in neat lines on the trampled grass. Their corrugated roofs are darkened with the day's drizzle, and a thin curl of smoke rises from each little stovepipe, drifting up into the low, kind clouds. Inside, the air smells of damp wool, boot polish, pipe tobacco, and the warm, steady comfort of a coal fire that has been tended all afternoon. It is Saturday evening, the 13th of May. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, and in hut after hut, all along that meadow, young American boys are sitting down to write home. Some sit cross-legged on their bunks, with a rough green blanket tucked under them and a writing pad balanced on one knee. Others lean over their footlockers, using the lid as a desk, a small lamp pulled close. A few have gathered at the long mess table at the center of the hut, sharing a single bottle of ink, passing it from hand to hand the way they once passed milk pitchers across a kitchen table at home. The wireless is on, low and crackling, somewhere down the row. A British announcer is reading the weather, his voice as gentle as the rain on the roof. Outside, that English spring rain falls slow and even, the kind that does not hurry, the kind a farmer welcomes. It taps softly on the metal above their heads, a sound so steady it almost seems to be helping them think. A boy from Iowa writes first. "Dear Mom," he begins, and then sits a long while watching his pen. "They gave us tea again tonight. It is weak as dishwater, but they pour it hot, and the English fellows seem to set great store by it, so I am learning to drink it their way." Across the hut, a tall boy from Tennessee chews the end of his pencil. "Mama," he writes, "the country here looks something like home, only smaller and greener and older. The stone walls in the fields have been standing, they tell me, for hundreds of years. There are little white flowers along every lane. A boy from Brooklyn, who has never in his life seen a cow up close, writes that he has now seen a great many. They are very calm animals," he tells his mother, with the gravity of a new discovery. I think you would like them. None of them write what they truly know. None of them mention the maps in the briefing tents, or the long rehearsals on the cold beaches, or the date that hangs over them like a held breath. They write instead about the tea, and the rain, and the weak English chocolate, and the funny way the locals say, cheerio. They write about a sergeant who reminds them of an uncle. They write about a song on the radio that made them think of the front porch. And every one of them, somewhere in the letter, tells his mother that he is well, that he is eating, that he is warm, that she must not on any account worry. Outside, the rain whispers down on the meadow. A nightingale, somewhere in the hawthorn hedge, begins its slow, liquid song. And one by one, in the soft yellow lamplight of those curved metal huts, the boys sign their names, your loving son, and fold the pages carefully, the way a mother once folded a clean sheet, and slide them into envelopes addressed home. Now we travel south, across the Channel, across France, still shadowed by occupation, across the Alps with their white shoulders bowed beneath the spring stars, down into the slow golden country of southern Italy, where the war wears a softer coat, and the evening smells of dust and wild thyme and oranges left ripening on the tree. Here, on a wide flat field outside Foggia, a 12th Air Force squadron has come home for the day. The B-25s sit in long, tired rows along the runway, their olive paint dulled by the African wind that blew across them only a week before. Their engines are still ticking quietly as they cool, small, metallic size, like a kettle settling on the back of a stove. A ground crewman in oil-stained coveralls walks slowly between the planes with a clipboard tucked under his arm, patting each propeller as he passes, the way a farmer pats the flank of a tired draft horse at the end of a long day's plowing. The sun is going down behind the olive groves. Oh, what a sun it is! A great, slow, copper-colored sun, sliding through the silver leaves, turning the dust on the runway to a fine pink mist that drifts and settles, as the boys come walking back from the dispersal area in their leather jackets and their soft khaki caps. They have flown today, and they are very tired, and they are very quiet, and they are alive. One by one, they find places to sit. Not in the briefing tent, not yet. They have something to do first, before supper, before the news of the day, before the small business of being soldiers again. They sit on ammunition crates, lined up beside the hard stands. They sit on jerry cans, turned on their ends. They sit in the long blue shadow of a B-25 named Mama's Boy. Somebody painted that name on her nose months ago in Tunisia, and tonight, of all nights, it seems exactly the right name for a bomber to have. They take out the writing paper they have been saving. Some of it is fine cream stationery, sent from home in a Christmas package. Some of it is the thin, almost translucent V-mail sheet, ruled with faint blue lines. Some of it is just the back of a navigation chart, folded carefully so the printing won't show. And in the hush of the Italian evening, while crickets begin to tune up in the dry grass beyond the perimeter, the boys begin to write to their mothers. A tail gunner from Ohio, no older than 19, leans his back against a wheel chock and writes about the olive trees. He tells his mother he has never seen anything like them, how the leaves turn silver when the wind moves through them, like the underside of a school of minnows in the creek back home. He tells her there are little stone farmhouses tucked into the hills, and that an old Italian woman gave him an egg this morning, just placed it warm in his palm without a word, and how he carried it carefully all the way back to camp and ate it boiled with salt and thought of her kitchen. A pilot from Vermont writes more slowly, his pencil pausing often. He tells his mother the sunsets here are the longest he has ever seen, that the light lingers and lingers, the way light sometimes lingers in May at home, on the porch, when supper is over and nobody quite wants to go inside. He tells her that for Mother's Day he is sending her a pressed flower, a tiny blue thing he picked at the edge of the runway, and that he hopes it will still be blue when it reaches her in Burlington. A radio operator from Brooklyn writes the shortest letter of all. Dear Ma, asterisk, he writes, I am eating fine. I am sleeping fine. I am thinking of you. Happy Mother's Day? And then he signs his name a second time, just to make sure, and he kisses the bottom of the page, very lightly, the way a small boy kisses a goodnight. Above them, the first stars begin to come out over the Adriatic. The cooling engines are silent now. Somewhere across the field, a phonograph in an officer's tent is playing, softly, almost shyly, I'll be seeing you. And the boys keep writing in the gathering blue, their pencils whispering across the paper, while the warm Italian dusk gathers them in like a quilt, and the olive leaves turn one last time in the breeze, silver green, against the deepening sky. And while the olive leaves turn silver green in Italy, half a world away the sun has already set into another ocean entirely, and the same Sunday is just beginning again over warm, dark water. Picture, now, a destroyer riding gently at anchor in a quiet bay of the South Pacific. She's a long, lean ship, painted the soft blue-gray of a mourning dove, and at this hour she seems less like a vessel of war than a sleeping animal. Her engines down to a low hum, her deck lights hooded, her great guns capped against the salt. Around her, the lagoon is the color of black tea, and beyond the reef, the open sea breathes in and out, the way a tired child breathes against a mother's shoulder. It is the second Sunday of May, 1944, Mother's Day. And on her fantail, in the warm tropical dark, a few sailors have come up from below to write home. Down in the berthing compartments, the air is thick as warm milk. The bunks are stacked 4 high, canvas slung on iron pipes, and the metal hull holds the heat of the day long after sundown. A boy from Nebraska, 18 years old, has given up trying to sleep and climbed topside in his skivvy shirt, a pad of email paper rolled in his fist. He sits now with his back against a depth charge rack, knees drawn up, and begins, Dear Mom. The pencil moves slowly. He wants to tell her about the ocean, because the ocean tonight is doing something he has no words for, and yet he tries. The wake of a passing motor launch has stirred the bay into living light. Each ripple glows a soft, cold green, as if the sea itself were lit from underneath by 1,000 small lamps. Phosphorescence, an officer told him once. Tiny creatures. He writes in his careful schoolboy hand, Mom, the water here lights up at night. I cup my hand over the rail, and the drops fall like green stars. I wish you could see it. Nearby, a signalman from Brooklyn is writing too, his letter tilted toward the dim red glow of a blackout lantern. He is telling his mother about the Sunday service the chaplain held earlier, up here on the open deck, just at dusk. There was no chapel, no organ, no stained glass, only the chaplain in his rumpled khakis, a small wooden cross set on an ammunition crate, and 40 boys standing in a loose half-circle, their white hats in their hands. The chaplain spoke for only a few minutes. He spoke about mothers. He said that every mother in America was, at that very moment, 3 time zones and an ocean away, going about her Sunday, putting a roast in the oven, pinning a carnation to her dress, walking to church under the soft May trees of home, and that her love, somehow, traveled faster than any radio signal, faster than any ship, and was already here on this deck, here over this dark water, here with each of them. Then they sang. Just one verse of Abide With Me, soft enough that it didn't carry past the rail. And when they finished, the first stars were out, and the Southern Cross hung low over the bow. That small, tilted constellation of the lower hemisphere, 4 bright points like a kite of light. And the boys stood looking up at it for a long, quiet minute before drifting off to write their letters. The signalman writes all this down. He tells his mother about the cross. He tells her it is a kind of southern compass, and that whenever he sees it now, he will think of her finding him there, on the underside of the world, with her finger on the map. Across the deck, under a single shaded bulb, the ship's cook, a thick-armed man from Louisiana, 31 years old, the oldest enlisted man aboard, is writing to Asterix his mother in pencil so soft it barely marks the page. He is not telling her about the war. He is telling her instead about the small things. About how the flying fish came up alongside the ship at sunset, glittering. About how the bread he baked this morning rose well, even in the heat. About how he keeps her photograph taped inside his locker, and how each night, before he climbs into his bunk, he taps it twice, very gently, the way a man might tap a door frame on his way out, just to say, "Still here." And out beyond the reef, the long ocean breathes and breathes and breathes, and the green lights drift on the water, and the pencils move on quietly under the Southern Cross. And while those pencils move, somewhere across the world another letter is being folded, small and square and pale as a moth's wing. It is a V-mail, and it is starting a journey of nearly 9,000 miles to reach a mailbox in Ohio. Let us follow it. It begins, this letter, on a thin sheet of standardized paper the size of a postcard, handed out by the chaplain or pulled from a stack in the mess tent. The boy who writes on it, let us say he is in a Quonset hut in Suffolk, England, 3 weeks before the Great Crossing, leans on his knee and writes in pencil, because pencil does not smear in damp weather, and damp weather is the only weather England knows in spring. Dear Mom, asterisk, he writes. Happy Mother's Day. I am well. The food is better than you would think. Please don't worry. He folds the sheet along the printed lines. He licks the gummed edge. He addresses it in block letters to a small white house on a maple-shaded street in a town called Wadsworth, or Bucyrus, or Ashtabula's, one of those soft Ohio names that sound like a lullaby when you say them slowly. And then he drops it into the canvas mailbag, and the journey begins. The bag travels by truck in the gray English dawn, past hedgerows still wet with last night's rain, to a sorting depot in London. There, in a long room lit by green-shaded lamps, women in cardigans and headscarves move the letters into bins. The bins are sorted by destination Ohio with Ohio, Texas with Texas, and then the letters are taken to the V-mail station. Here is the quiet wonder of it. In a back room, a great machine the size of a small piano hums steadily. The letters are fed into it, one by one, and each is photographed onto a strip of microfilm, 1,600 letters, fitting onto a single roll the weight of a robin's egg. The originals are kept, just in case, but the microfilm is what travels. A whole mailbag's worth of love, reduced to a spool you could close inside your fist. The spools are placed in canvas pouches, the pouches in canvas sacks, and the sacks are loaded into the belly of a transport plane on a runway in Prestwick, Scotland. The engines warm, the propellers blur, and the letter, now a few millimeters of silver halide on a strip of celluloid, lifts into the sky over the North Atlantic, where the clouds stack themselves like soft white cathedrals all the way to Newfoundland. The censors have already done their work. Gentle work, mostly. A black grease pencil over a place name, a unit number, the bend of a river, but never over the tenderness. The tenderness, the censors always let through. They were mothers, sons too. In Newfoundland, the spool is unloaded, transferred to another plane, and flown south to New York. From New York, by mail train it travels west, through the long blue dusk of Pennsylvania, past the steel towns where the furnaces glow like sunset all night long, and into Ohio, which is greening now, the corn just up, the dogwoods white at the edge of every wood. In a sorting room in Cleveland, the microfilm is fed into another machine, its mirror twin, and each tiny photograph is enlarged and printed onto a small sheet of paper, 4 by 5 inches, with the boy's own handwriting reproduced exactly, every loop and dash, every place his pencil paused. The letter is folded, placed in a windowed envelope, stamped, and given to a postman in a gray uniform, who whistles, sometimes on his rounds. And then, on a Saturday morning in May, on a porch in Ohio, the screen door creaks, and a hand reaches out, and the letter, having crossed an ocean, a continent, a war, comes to rest in a mother's palm. She does not open it right away. She sits on the porch step. She holds it for a moment in both hands, the way you hold something newly hatched, and she touches the corner of it with her thumb. The handwriting is his, the same handwriting that signed his report cards. The same handwriting that left a note on the icebox once. Gone fishing. Back by supper. She closes her eyes. Across the street, a robin is singing in the elm. A neighbor's wash is on the line. The world goes on, gentle, ordinary, blessed. And the letter, having traveled so very far, has come at last, exactly where it was always going. Home. And so we find her there, in a small kitchen, in a small house, on a small street, in a country that has grown very large with worry. It is evening now. The long Sunday is folding itself away. Outside the window, the sky has turned the color of weak tea, that soft, used-up blue that comes after a warm May day, and the maple at the edge of the yard is whispering to itself in a language only maples know. A sparrow settles on the sill, considers her through the glass, and decides she is no trouble at all. He flies on. Inside, the kitchen is quiet in the way only a mother's kitchen can be quiet, not empty exactly. Just waiting. She has set the table for one. She did not mean to. It simply happened, the way so many things have simply happened these last 2 years. A single plate, a single cup, a single spoon resting on a folded napkin she has ironed flat out of habit. The salt and pepper shakers, little ceramic chickens her son painted at summer camp when he was 9, stand together near the sugar bowl, keeping each other company. On the stove, a pot of coffee is murmuring. She made it strong, the way he likes it. The way he liked it. The way, she corrects herself gently, he will like it again when he comes home. The radio is playing softly from the parlor. A man with a velvet voice is singing about bluebirds and white cliffs, and the song drifts into the kitchen the way perfume drifts through a quiet house. Unhurried, unimportant, everywhere. She does not turn it up. She does not turn it off. It is simply there, the way the wallpaper is there, the way the clock above the icebox is there, ticking out the patient arithmetic of an evening alone. In the front window, the service flag hangs perfectly still. A small white rectangle bordered in red, and at its center, one blue star. Her star. Her boy. She washes that little flag every Saturday whether it needs it or not, because somehow, in some way she could not put into words if you asked her, keeping it clean feels like keeping him safe. She sits down. She smooths her apron. She opens the letter. She has read it 3 times already today. Once at breakfast, once at the kitchen sink while the dishes dried, and once on the porch when the neighbor, Mrs. Halloran, came by with a slice of lemon cake and a hug that lasted a beat longer than usual. But this reading is different. This is the evening reading. The one just for her. And for him. She clears her throat softly, as though he might be listening from the other side of the table. "Dear Mom," she begins, in a voice no louder than the steam rising from her coffee. And she reads it aloud. All of it. The part about the rain in England and the mud he can never quite get off his boots. The part about the boy from Wisconsin who sings in his sleep. The part about the chaplain who passed out little paper carnations because there were no real ones to be found. The part where he says he is fine, Mom. Truly. Don't you worry. The part where he says he can almost taste her apple pie from here. She reads slowly. She reads carefully. She lets each sentence settle in the kitchen like dust motes settling in a sunbeam, gently, gently, taking their time. When she comes to the end, to the place where he writes, "Your loving son," her finger rests on the words for a long moment, the way you might rest your hand on a sleeping child's back, just to feel the breathing. Then she folds the letter, carefully, along the same creases he made, and she places it in the little wooden box on the kitchen shelf, beside the others. There are 17 letters in that box now. She pours herself a fresh cup of coffee. She does not drink it right away. She just holds it, warming her hands. The radio is playing a slow song now, something with a piano, something about coming home. The sparrow has long since flown. The maple has gone still. Somewhere down the block, a screen door closes with a soft, neighborly thump. A dog barks once, and then thinks better of it. And in this small kitchen, in this small house, on this small street, in this enormous waiting country, A mother sits with her coffee and her quiet courage, and she keeps watch over the long, tender hours, the way mothers have always kept watch. The way mothers always will. Evening comes slowly to the small town, the way evening always comes in May, reluctant, lingering, soft as a held breath. The sun lowers itself behind the grain elevator at the edge of town, and the last light spills down Main Street like warm honey poured from a jar. Shop windows catch the gold of it. The barber's pole stops turning. A boy on a bicycle pedals home with a paper sack of groceries balanced on the handlebars, and his shadow stretches long behind him, thin and quiet as a whisper. And then, one by one, the windows of the little Methodist church begin to glow. It is a plain church. White clapboard. A modest steeple. A bell that has rung for weddings and christenings and funerals for nearly 70 years, and tonight it rings once, just once, soft and clear, calling the mothers in. They come on foot, mostly, from the houses along Elm and Cedar and Oak, from the farms on the county road. They wear their good coats, even though the evening is mild, because this is a service, and a service deserves a good coat. They carry handkerchiefs tucked into their sleeves. They carry, some of them, the folded letter that came that morning, or last week, or the week before, the one they have read so many times that the creases have grown soft as flannel. Above the door of the church hangs a banner, white with a red border, and in the center, a field of blue stars. Each star is a sun. Each star is a boy gone overseas. There are 47 stars on the banner tonight. And in the corner, 3 of them have been carefully, gently covered with gold for the boys who would not be coming home. These are the Blue Star Mothers. And this is their service. Inside, the church is lit only by candles. Dozens of them, set along the windowsills and the altar rail and the old upright piano in the corner. The light is the color of butter, the color of memory. It flickers against the dark wood pews and turns the stained glass into something soft and dreaming. A white carnation has been placed at the end of every pew. Some of the mothers carry their own small bouquets tied with ribbon plucked from the gardens behind their kitchens, where the first carnations of the season are just beginning to bloom. The pianist, an older woman named Mrs. Hollis, settles onto the bench. She rests her fingers on the keys for a long, quiet moment, the way a person rests a hand on a sleeping child's back. And then she begins to play. The mothers stand. They do not need the hymnals. They have known this song since they were girls. They sing it softly, the way you sing to a baby in the cradle, not for the listener, but for the love of the singing itself. Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. Their voices drift up to the rafters and settle there, and the candles seem to lean a little closer to listen. When the hymn is finished, the minister, a kind, gray-haired man who has known most of these women all his life, steps quietly to the lectern. He does not preach. Tonight is not a night for preaching. He simply opens a book, and he begins to read the names. Robert, Charles, James, William, Thomas, Henry, Daniel, Edward. The names are the names of sons. Each one is read slowly, gently, the way a mother says her child's name when she wakes him for school. After each name, a mother stands. And after each name she walks, in her good coat and her good shoes, to the altar at the front of the church. And there she lays a white carnation. For the living boys, the carnations are placed in a tall blue vase. The vase fills slowly, blossom by blossom, until it overflows with white. For the 3 boys who have not come home, 3 carnations are laid in a small basket, lined with white linen, set apart on a low table. There is no weeping. There is only a hand resting for a moment on the linen, the way a hand rests on a forehead. And then a step back. And then a return to the pew. Outside, the spring evening deepens into blue. Inside, the candles burn on, steady and patient, holding the dark gently at bay. And in the small white church, on the small main street, the mothers of a country at war sit together in the candlelight, and they keep, in their quiet way, the holy and tender watch of love. And across the wide, dark ocean, on the other side of that same long Sunday, the evening is just beginning to settle over England. The sun, low and golden, slips behind the hedgerows of the southern counties, and the long shadows of the elm trees stretch like quiet fingers across the lanes. The air smells of cut grass and damp earth, and chimney smoke from the village pubs, and somewhere far off, a church bell tolls the hour, soft and unhurried, the way church bells have tolled the hour in this gentle countryside for 1,000 years. In the Quonset huts and the borrowed barns, in the canvas tents pitched along the lanes of Devon and Hampshire and Dorset, the boys are finishing their letters home. They write by the light of a single bare bolt, or by the last yellow blade of sun coming through a small window, or by the flicker of a candle stub set on an overturned helmet. They write on whatever paper they can find, onion skin from the Red Cross, the back of a ration card, a page torn carefully from a pocket Bible. And they write the same words, the same tender, simple words that boys have always written to their mothers when night is falling and home is far away. I am well, mother. I am eating fine. The English countryside is beautiful in the spring. Do not worry. Some of them sign with the name she gave them at the kitchen table. Some sign, your loving son. Some draw a small heart in the corner, the way they did when they were 6 years old and the letter was a valentine, pinned to the icebox. And then, slowly, carefully, the way you fold something precious, they fold the letter into thirds. They lick the envelope. They press the flap down with the side of a thumb. They write the address in the careful handwriting their mothers taught them, and they hold the letter for one more moment, as if a letter could carry warmth, as if their hands could send the warmth across the sea. And then they step outside, into the soft English evening. The sky over the fields is a deep and tender blue, the blue of a robin's egg held against the cheek. The first star is already out, bright and steady above the dark line of the trees, and a second star, and then a third, like quiet candles being lit one by one in some great and gentle window. The boys stand in their shirt sleeves on the cool spring grass, and they tilt their heads back, and they look up. They are 18. They are 19. They are 20. They are tall and thin and freckled and smiling, and they have the soft, half-finished faces of boys who have not yet had time to become men. They come from the small farms of Iowa and the brick row houses of Philadelphia, from the orange groves of California and the cotton fields of Georgia, from the coal towns and the fishing towns and the streetcar stops of a country that, in this hour, is keeping Mother's Day in the lamplight 3,000 miles away. And they think of her. They think of her standing at the window of the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. They think of the carnation pinned to the lapel of her good Sunday dress. They think of the smell of bread, and the sound of the screen door, and the way she used to tuck the blanket up under their chin when the night was cold. They think of her voice calling them in for supper across a long summer yard, a voice that knew their name better than any voice in the world. They do not know, and this is the gentle, terrible mercy of it, that in 3 weeks' time, before the carnations on her lapel have even faded, the great gray ships will gather in the coves, and the sky will fill with engines, and the long bright dawn of June the 6th will break upon the beaches of Normandy. They do not know that for some of them, this Mother's Day letter, folded so carefully into its envelope, will be the last letter she ever receives in their handwriting. They do not know any of this tonight. Tonight, they only know the spring grass, and the slow blue sky, and the stars coming out one by one above the orchards of England. They only know that she is somewhere out beyond those stars, sitting in the kitchen, thinking of them. And that, for now, is enough. One by one, they go back inside. The doors close softly. The lights in the little windows glow steady and warm against the darkening fields. And the quiet evening settles over the south of England, gentle as a mother's hand, drawing the long blue blanket of night up over the sleeping world. And now, dear listener, let our story drift softly forward through the long hush of years, the way a river slips past sleeping fields in the dark. 80 springs have passed since that quiet Mother's Day. The boys who wrote those letters are mostly gone now, their voices folded back into the long silence from which all voices come. The mothers who held those envelopes against their hearts on the porch swings of 1944, they too have laid down their aprons, their kitchen radios, their slow afternoons of waiting. And yet, the letters remain. Paper outlasts so much. Paper outlasts almost everything. Picture, if you will, a small house at the edge of a sleepy American town on a Sunday afternoon in May, very much like this one. The porch boards are warm. A wind chime turns once and then is still. Inside, in a sunlit upstairs room with lace curtains breathing in and out, a grown woman with silver in her hair kneels on the soft carpet beside an old cedar chest. She has not opened it in many years. The lid lifts with a sweet woody sigh, and out drifts a fragrance of cedar and lavender and time itself, the perfume of attics, of grandmothers, of summers long folded away. Inside, beneath a quilt embroidered with daisies, she finds the bundle. A small packet of letters, perhaps 30 in all, tied carefully with a ribbon that was once pink and is now the color of a faded rose petal. The paper is the color of weak tea. The ink is gentle brown. Across the top of the first envelope, in a young man's careful hand, is written simply, "Mom." She unties the ribbon slowly, the way one unties something sacred. And there they are, the Mother's Day letters of 1944, written from England and Italy and the broad blue Pacific, by boys who called her grandmother mother, by a grandfather she barely remembers, by great uncles whose photographs hang in dim hallways, smiling forever at 22. She reads them by the soft afternoon light. Dear Mom, I am safe. I am well. I love you. The handwriting wavers and steadies and wavers again, the way young hearts do. Some letters are smudged, where the writer must have set down his pen to look out at a foreign sky and gather himself. One has a pressed violet inside, picked from a hedgerow in Devon, still holding the faint blue ghost of its color after 80 springs. And the listener, drifting now, may feel the great soft truth of it, that love, once written down in a steady hand on a quiet Sunday, becomes a kind of small eternity. The boy who wrote the letter grew old or did not grow old. The mother who received it laid it carefully in a drawer lined with tissue paper and went on with her dishes, her gardens, her long, brave life. And the paper waited. The paper was patient. The paper kept the warmth of that Sunday tucked inside its folds, the way a stone keeps the warmth of the sun long after the sun has set. So it is with all the letters ever written by a child to a mother. So it is with every quiet word of love spoken into the great listening dark. Nothing tender is ever truly lost. The carnations have wilted, the bands have stopped playing, the Sunday roasts have grown cold 1,000 times over, and still, somewhere, a paper sleeps in a cedar box, holding its small warm light against the centuries. The grandchild ties the ribbon again, gently, gently. She lays the letters back into their nest of quilted daisies. She closes the lid, and outside, the May afternoon turns slowly toward evening, the way May afternoons have always turned, and always will. So rest now, dear friend. Rest as the porches of America rested on that long-ago Sunday, with the smell of pot roast and lilac drifting through the screens. Rest as the boys rested in their bunks across the wide spring world, their letters mailed, their hearts at peace for one more night. Rest as mothers rest, when at last the children are home, and the doors are locked, and the kitchen light is finally turned out. The pen is laid down. The envelope is sealed. The carnation is pinned softly to the heart, and the long blue blanket of night is drawn, gentle and complete, over us all. Good night. Good night. Good night.